Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey! Yeah, we're back this week with a lot of news going on in the world of entertainment. We got some trailers to talk about. We got Raya and the Last Dragon, Godzilla versus Kong, a Young Rock trailer to talk about. We've also got some news on Harry Potter possibly becoming a TV series from Warner Brothers. We've also got some Invincible updates, that animated series coming soon on Amazon Prime, I think, from Robert Kirkman and creators there. And also, we're going to get into the HBO Max news that they've somehow rocketed past their subscriber prediction 2 years early, if you believe the numbers. So we're going to get into a lot of things here going on in the world of entertainment. I am one of your hosts. I am the Outlaw, John Rocha, joined as always by these gentlemen here to my right or left, depending on how you're looking at the screen right now. Let's not do that. Sorry about that, brother, man.
Whew, got a trigger happy outlaw over here. I am confused. That's what I am. But I am also Michael Vogel, and whether I'm on his right or his left, I am a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies, and glad that it's not my internet that's messing up right now. It's just Johnny.
I'm getting on in years. The gun sometimes shoots on its own. All right, what do you got there, Shannon?
And this is Shannon McClung, and I am entertained right now. I hope you're as entertained as I am. But I'm also an animation writer and a television actor, where you may have seen me on Modern Family, Silicon Valley, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Do you have anything coming up? Have you been going out? Has the
There is auditions are happening. Like, they were happening more towards the end of the year, but then when we went back on this after the holidays and California kind of, we went on that, super restrictive lockdown.
Right.
The auditions have kind of stopped. I've heard stuff has started filming, but there is a particular series from Netflix that has had me on hold twice now.
Oh my God.
So I'm hoping that they're not done shooting yet, but I'm hoping that the third time will be the charm.
Yeah, that Luke Cage season 3. I got it. Anyway, all right. Let's. For those of you who are new to the program, thank you very much for joining us. For either downloading it on our podcast feed, you can always listen to us on the podcast feed that we have. Just look for the Geek Buddies wherever you download podcasts. And for those watching us on YouTube, thank you very much. For those who are new here to the channel, but if you are returning, thank you even more for staying on the Geek Buddies train. Our numbers have really gone up over the last few months. It's been great to see, great to interact with all of you. And for those of you who are new, this is how the show works. Each one of us presents a geek news item. We talk about it amongst ourselves for your enjoyment. Then we take a little bit of a mini break and jump into our main topic. And our main topic, how could it not be, is the Harry Potter TV series and some stories we'd like to see happen if it does go down. So we'll discuss that as well. But let's start off with you, right, Shannon?
That's me. Trailers.
Oh.
So last week we got some pretty wacky trailers to review. This week we have some things that are probably a little more right down the middle in terms of appeal.
In other words, we had weird, shitty trailers last week, but now we bring in the goods.
We're not saying shitty. We're not saying shitty.
You can say that to Nick Cage if you want. I'm not going to say that to Nick Cage, but yeah, go ahead.
I don't want the host of the History of Swear Words yelling at me. But the first trailer we're going to talk about is Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah.
So this is directed by Adam Wingard, who directed The Guest and some other horror films.
Yeah.
This was also one of the films that is part of that WB HBO Max agreement. It will come out in theaters where theater is available, but it's also going to be available on HBO Max in March. So this is a continuation of the WB Monsterverse that they tried to start back with, I think it was in 2014, with that Godzilla.
Right.
Kept going with Kong Skull Island, continued with Godzilla King of the Monsters, and this is the latest chapter. So this trailer, it's bringing back some of the cast members we saw in Godzilla King of the Monsters, Kyle Chandler, Millie Bobby Brown, and it's got some new people as well, Rebecca Hall, Alexander Skarsgård. Basically, what happens when Kong finally meets Godzilla in an urban brawl. So these movies are made for trailers because it's spectacle. It's the nostalgia factor of watching King Kong and Godzilla get to go up against each other. This is not the first time. It happened back in the 50s and the 60s, I believe, when it was more the man in suit. But yeah, the trailer is awesome. It's so much fun to watch. The effects are so incredible. The acting is good for what it is. It's a lot of it's Godzilla. Why is Kong doing this? I mean, it's not that deep in terms of what they're asking. It's basically a movie about two monsters slugging it out. Yeah. Now, the movies that have come up to this point have been fine. Like Godzilla, I think we all agree was like, God, Bryan Cranston was so awesome in that. I wish they hadn't gotten rid of him. Kong Skull Island, pretty entertaining. Godzilla King of the Monsters, that was a movie chock full of monsters, and it just didn't quite, at least for me, it just didn't quite stick the landing. It had the spectacle factor. Will Godzilla versus Kong do it? Based off of this trailer, it's a solid maybe. What do you guys think?
Mike?
Look, I kind of agree with you about the other movies leading up to this. I would put them in the category of not great, but not offensive and pleasant to see. Like, the special effects are so good, and we do go see these movies for the monsters. And I think in any of these movies, while the human casts have been fine and the plot and story have been there, to get us through, the one thing you can say that all three movies did is they delivered on monsters. Like, the monsters were great, the monsters looked good, the monsters were fun. So I think this movie sort of benefits from the expectations of what these previous three have gotten me to, which is I want Kong and Godzilla to fight. I want them to look good. And any story that you give me on top of that will be bonus. Now, all that being said, I will give the movies credit that in a world where everyone is trying to build these franchises and movies that have some level of continuity, and maybe it's because the plots are so ridiculous, they've built a kind of solid enough continuity that I'm like, okay, I get it. I know what the world is. I know what Monarch is. I think the biggest misery coming out of this trailer is that for the previous two Godzilla movies, Godzilla's more or less been the hero. And this trailer makes it really clear that they're bringing Kong in because Godzilla's now a problem. Now, the trailer also makes it clear that he's behaving erratically. There seems to be more of a mystery. Is there mind control? Are humans controlling him? I mean, I know in the post-credit sequence of the last Godzilla movie, we saw, is it Charles Dance?
Yes,
Tywin Lannister? Stealing a giant monster head. And there's a lot of theories that maybe these two, Godzilla and Kong, are going to end up teaming up by the end and fighting Mecha Godzilla. I mean, there's a lot of places that this could go. So regardless, there's going to be a lot of awesome monster action. And I think this movie will also benefit from the fact that we are starved for new movies. So whether you're going to watch this on HBO Max, whether you're going to go to a theater if you're able, I think we are all so anxious to be able to see new things that this is going to be an exciting one for everybody.
Well, I mean, people better get ready because, I mean, this is part of the HBO Max decision to be dropping all of these day and dates on HBO Max and, the Warner Bros. Decision to drop it on HBO Max and in the theater. So get ready. I mean, there will be no more starving in 2021. You will be fat and happy by the time December rolls around, I think, from all the releases are going to be dropped on streaming.
Well, we'll be fat. I don't know if we'll be happy.
Well, yeah, that's fair. That still remains to be seen. Well, you'll be alive. You should be happy for that. But yeah, certainly we'll see how that goes. But I love this trailer. Really enjoyed it. They do trailers well, just like Transformers. They do trailers really, really well. It's once you get in the theater, it's the law of diminishing returns. I think consistently, I enjoyed Godzilla, really did. I liked that they held off. I liked the visuals of Godzilla. I liked everything about that movie. Yes, Bryan Cranston being off too early certainly was an issue, but I didn't mind the movie itself. Kong was fun with okay. King of Monsters was just like, let me turn my brain off and have some fun in this movie, like old school stuff. And people, I get so frustrated with people who go like, well, there's this movie. And I'm like, have you seen the 75 other Godzilla movies? They're not like that great. You know, let's be real about what they're trying to do here. So the fact that they're bringing in so many great actors into this franchise speaks volumes. I love that we get Rebecca Hall. And look, kudos to Rebecca Hall, who is a classically trained actress trying to say the King Kong stuff that she's saying with such seriousness and belief. And she does it. She pulls it off. Stellan Skarsgård, nobody tells Kong to stand down. It's like, oh, all right, go get it. Stellan Skarsgård, it's really great to have him be a part of this franchise as well. Love that Millie Bobby Brown, love that Brian Tyree Henry is going to be a part of this too, having just finished Atlanta, the first two seasons of Atlanta, falling more in love with him as an actor. Yeah. Also classically trained at Yale. So it's to see all of this involved here is a lot of fun. And it's the same formula as Transformers. Bring in these like really good established actors, have them have a little fun in a monster movie or a car transforming movie. Just let them have a little fun. But I hope this is a good one because the last one didn't do well as the others financially in the box office. And of course, this one's going to be measured a little differently because it's also coming out on HBO Max. But I hope the reviews are positive. I hope it's a good movie because you do want to see Godzilla versus Kong. I totally agree with you, Michael. I think the Mechagodzilla thing is absolutely going to happen. And it may be that Godzilla is being manipulated, by Mechagodzilla to have this fight. Because you're right. Godzilla was the hero in the movies that we saw.
This is going to follow every superhero fight battle we've ever read in comics or seen in movies where, for reasons, these two are going to come to blows and have to fight each other. But by the end, neither Godzilla nor Kong is going to be a villain at this point. Both of them, in at least this new iteration of movies, if not even in the earlier things, there's always the level that like these guys are not ultimately the villains. The biggest villains in these movies are us, and that is the most realistic thing in all of them.
So true.
I do have to say, my favorite thing in all of these movies, still to this day, is the first Godzilla movie. Yeah. After he fights and like just passes out in the city and has like won the day, and you get to the end of the movie and everyone's just chilling and he just wakes up and stumbles off like he woke up hungover. Like hungover Godzilla stumbling out of the city into the ocean and then credits roll is to me still the greatest thing in all of these movies. And I don't think even Godzilla versus Kong is going to top the drunken, like, I feel like ass, let me get back in the ocean. That's really that's the pinnacle of these movies for me.
Yeah. And they're kind of combining the story, aren't they? Because, taking him in shackles to New York, that's reminiscent, obviously, of the original Kong from 1933, but it doesn't look like they're going to be like putting him up for show and, blah, blah, blah. And then the young girl, I don't remember the young girl. Is that, I think that's a new addition, isn't it?
That's new.
Okay. That's an interesting way to still have him have a connection with a female, just make it a young child, so he's even more sympathetic as a character.
I kind of like that more. Like I will say, out of everything in that, like that little girl, I was like, oh, I'm into this. This is a cool thing. I want to see more of this. So
it's very similar to the twins with it was Mothra.
Yeah, Mothra.
Yeah, I mean it's a very similar dynamic, and you found out in Godzilla King of the Monsters that one of those twins was still around.
Yes.
So there could be a connection, like child to kaiju connection. I don't know, but coming out in March. So
Mothra joke here. All right, go ahead. Yeah, what's the next? Mikey, take us out of this.
I will. Well, March is definitely, as Johnny said, as starved as we've been for entertainment, that is about to change drastically because all of the movies that have been put on hold that we didn't know what was happening are either coming out fully in theaters, fully on streaming, or, as is the case with Kong versus Godzilla, both, and is the case with Raya and the Last Dragon over on the competitive Disney+. So the second trailer for Raya and the Last Dragon came out. We had talked about the first trailer. It looks awesome. Obviously, as a huge Disney animation nerd, anytime a Disney animated feature film is coming out, there's cause for excitement. But this one is really exciting because as opposed to the typical Disney princess musical, which, P.S., is always awesome. This is definitely much more in the Big Hero 6 vein and some of the more action-packed entries. So this movie, it stars Kelly Marie Tran as Raya and Awkwafina as the dragon Sisu, who we finally got to see in this trailer. And for those that don't know, basically the description is long ago in a fantasy world of Kumandra, humans and dragons live together in harmony, but when sinister monsters threaten the land, the dragons sacrifice themselves, and now 500 years later, those same monsters have returned, and it's up to a lone warrior named Raya to track down the last dragon and save humanity. So this trailer gave us a lot more of the humor. Like I said, we see Sisu the dragon for the first time, which we didn't see in the trailer. But I think the trailer pretty much belongs to Con Baby, which was the best part. When Raya at the beginning is saying not to trust anybody, sees an adorable baby, trusts it, and instantly is conned because that baby has a more sinister plan. But what did you guys think? A lot of fun stuff in the trailer, a lot of cool action, a lot of gorgeous vistas. What were your guys' reactions?
Yeah, I thought it was a really, really good trailer. I mean, the first one was a teaser. It was a little peek at the world. Like this one, you're getting some of that humor. Definitely Con Baby, very funny. You could hear the voice of Benedict Wong as one of the characters, the giant guy with the eye patch. Yeah, this looks like it will be a very, very entertaining movie. And you get the Disney talking animal from Awkwafina. And Awkwafina, I have not always been a big fan of. I didn't love her in Ocean's 8, but I really liked her in her film. What was it about her
Farewell?
Family? The Farewell. That was, I mean, she was dynamite in that. And obviously, this role is going to be a little more comedic. But what we saw in the trailer, she looks great. I mean, this one hopefully will be worth the premiere access fee one has to pay to watch it in March.
Yeah. I think it's going to be what, $19.99 or $29.99, which is I don't know. I'm hoping I get a screener so I don't have to pay that much, but we'll see.
It is an interesting strategy. I really don't know. Ultimately, I mean, I know we're going to talk about HBO Max kind of, chasing Disney Plus's heels. Especially with HBO Max releasing all of their movies the way that they are. I'm curious as how this whole premiere access thing works for them.
Yeah, and maybe because Disney is offering it for $8 a month, Disney Plus, that they feel like, well, we can upcharge on certain things because you're only paying $8 for all this other stuff. I don't know if it's logical, but maybe that's their approach to it. But yeah, I love this trailer. This was so much fun. I'm one of those that's like, okay, is it going to be good? And then you watch it, you're like, this is awesome. The visuals were incredible. I love when there's, sword fighting or anything that goes on with it. It's so much, especially when you put it in an Asian landscape. I've always enjoyed that from samurai films on any form, animated, what have you. It's great to see. So I was excited for this, and I think it looks fantastic. The voiceover work looks great. Yeah, little babies, fun as well. The design of the dragon is really spectacular. I like that. And the whole approach. Yeah, that one in the group project got the scale, it's nice. It's a dragon that has its own things that it's confronting as well, its own journey that it has to go on as well. You have that nice little moment at the end. Of course, you got to throw in some butt humor. Why not? But I think overall, because you want to appeal to kids and kids love butt humor, but you get into all of this, and I think it's really, really funny and sweet and lighthearted, and it looks badass. And I hesitate to mention it because I think we're coming close to the time where we don't have to mention it anymore. A female antagonist, a female protagonist. I like that. It's good. I noticed it, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Then we moved on. And I hope that starts to become something we don't even have to highlight anymore because it becomes more and more frequent to equal the amount of years we had it where it was constantly a male antagonist and a male protagonist. So I'm excited by that as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. I think Disney's done a really nice job in the past few years of not only putting female stories to the forefront and female characters for the forefront, but also telling female stories that aren't necessarily about romance. Zootopia, Wreck-It Ralph with Vanellope, Wreck-It Ralph 2 with Vanellope, even Moana. The relationship between her and Maui is a friendship and not a romantic one. And what's really nice about these Raya trailers is maybe there will be a romance, maybe there won't. I don't know. But the story very much seems to revolve around Raya, this female dragon character, them on their journey together, and this female antagonist. And so I think that's good. The other thing I really liked about the trailer, and I hope they stick the landing on this message, is the whole message at the end when Raya kind of says, the world is broken, you can't trust anyone. And then Awkwafina's character, Sisu the dragon, says, maybe the world is broken because you don't trust anyone. And I kind of think if there was ever a time that we needed an animated movie that doubled down on that message, we are currently in the middle of it. So I'm all on board for that message. And if they can really kind of inspire us to see past our differences and learn to move forward, and Awkwafina as a giant blue dragon is the one that teaches us, I'm here for it.
Yeah, that's a great point. You're all aboard this mission for kick-assery. That's for sure.
Boom.
All right, well, let's move on to our last trailer here, and that is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I this guy, what the heck? It's like they took Ryan Seacrest and cloned him 3 times over to have Dwayne Johnson, because it's insane how many projects the man has going at the same time, all the time, that he himself appears in, which is incredible. I mean, Fighting with My Family, which was about a couple of years ago, he was involved in it, produced it, made it happen, appears in it. Now, Young Rock, this is the new TV series coming from NBC in February. It's around the corner, a couple of weeks away, February 16th. Hopefully, I can find a way to get involved in this in some way, get an interview if I can. We'll see if I can shake the tree hard enough. But yeah, this is going to happen. This is based on the young life of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, from being a young kid to a teenager to going into college and playing for the University of Miami football team. And it's going to be told at times in flashback. Apparently, The Rock is going to be appearing in every episode in some form. Like I said, he appears in all this stuff that he also produces. Randall Park is in this trailer, and he's interviewing The Rock, and The Rock is talking about how he is going to be president in 2032, which is very funny. But it tells the story, and you see the flashbacks. Listen, this is so much up my alley. I can't even explain it to you. A, because it's The Rock, but also B, you're getting all these actors playing The Rock's father, Rocky Johnson. The Rock's mom was very well known. His grandfather, Peter Maivia. You were getting Andre the Giant. You're getting Randy the Macho Man Savage, the Iron Sheik. All these wrestlers are going to be in the show as characters, and the actors are going to play them as the characters and as themselves. That's going to be a really fascinating way to explore this old school 80s time of wrestling, and also see The Rock's rise, because if you've ever read his biography, it's an incredible journey the man has been on to achieve what he's achieved now, from the depths of poverty to where he's at now. It's incredible. So I'm looking forward to it. It's got some nice humor in it. I don't know. What did you guys think?
Look, man, it's really interesting because as a television actor, you have to be aware of the stuff that is coming down the pipe.
Yeah.
I had no idea that this show was a thing until I saw. At first, I thought, I'm like, is this like a sketch? Is this a commercial for something? And then I watched a trailer, and it's from Nahnatchka Khan, who created Fresh Off the Boat, where she worked with Randall Park.
Right.
Look, this show, even before looking at the trailer, I'm like, what is this going to be? This looks darling. I mean, this looks like such a fun, very funny, and a very sweet show, like a funny show with a lot of heart. And that, like, obviously, I've never met The Rock, but the impression that you get from him is this guy is just full of heart. Like, you feel like whatever he chooses to do, he goes all the way in. So the fact that he will be appearing in each and every episode, the fact that this is basically about his upbringing, growing up with this, with these, wacky wrestlers all around him, into his days playing football in Miami. I mean, it just looks like a blast. And watching the trailer, especially the dynamic between him and his parents, I was like, this is going to be awesome. And especially if you liked Fresh Off the Boat, I have to think that this is going to top that.
Yeah. And Michael, it focused on this theme of family as well. And as much as you might want to bash Hobbs and Shaw, The Rock was a very strong executive producer on that. And that also focused on him going back to his homeland, going back to being family,
I mean, even him doing Moana, like, he's done such a great job of using his celebrity and using the fact that he's one of the biggest stars in the world, literally and figuratively, that he's used that to really push his side of representation and tell stories about his people, his family, his culture. And I think that's super, super important, and actually makes me like him even more. When you sent us the trailer and said we should cover this today, like, I saw it and I was like, oh, okay, I get what this is. Like, we'll see the trailer, maybe I'll watch it. Like Shannon, it won me over almost immediately. And also, I will say, like, I did not go see Fighting with My Family in theaters when it came out. I was like, okay, I get it. The Rock is producing this movie that's sort of about wrestling. It looks fine. It looks okay. Maybe I'll check it out, and I just never did. And then I was on a plane one night when we could still go on planes, and I watched it on the plane and just laughed and cried and loved it. And I have realized that even though I didn't grow up love wrestling as much as you did, Johnny, The Rock knows how to take that world of wrestling that he came from and turn it into a super heartwarming, super life-affirming, super inspiring story. He did it. If you haven't seen Fighting with My Family, I truly cannot recommend that movie enough. Go check it out. And it looks like he's taking that same brand of the stories that he wants to tell and bringing it to this. And it looks great. All the phases of his life look great. Like, it just looks amazing throughout.
He said it in one of the TCA panels. I think he said, "This is my love letter to wrestling from that time." And you can see the way he's approaching it. He's making it very accessible. He's making it very fun. I really doubt you're going to get into some of the nefarious parts of that time of shit that went down in the 80s with wrestling as well. So you're going to get more of a playful access to it, and that's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, that scene in the trailer where he goes, well, as a young kid, he goes, it's all fake anyway. And the looks on everybody around the table, that's a very well-known thing. People get very upset about that. If you want to watch some old clips of people interviewing professional wrestlers in the 80s where they try to get them to admit it's fake, Hogan knocked out Richard Belzer one time with just a hold when Richard Belzer claimed it was fake. He just held him with a hold, passed out, and his head slammed onto the floor. So it was a whole big deal. So
was it John Stossel who got smacked?
Yeah, Stossel got smacked by Dr. D. David Schultz because Vince McMahon told Dr. D, like, don't let this guy leave without believing that it's real. And so when he said to him, hey, I hear that it's fake, and he just finally, after the fifth time asking him, he just unloaded on the guy, which was an unfortunate situation because then Vince fired him a few months later because of the backlash, even though Vince told him to do it. So welcome to Vince McMahon. But this is also produced by The Rock's company and his ex-wife, Danny Garcia, who is co-president of the company. They also own the XFL. Like I said, this guy doesn't sleep. They're now running the XFL as well. So it's mind-blowing the time he has to do this kind of stuff. And you're right, Shannon, one of the most genuine dudes you're ever going to meet. One of the nicest guys, willing to give. You know, having interviewed him twice, he was willing to cut a promo with me. It was incredible. So I hope this show takes off and is a big success because clearly they're going through different stages of The Rock, and you wonder if it's all going to be like moved around in time and what have you. So it's exciting to see, and I hope it goes well. You know, why not? We get a young Sheldon. Why can't we get a young Rock, for God's sakes?
Exactly.
All right, what's our next thing?
Well,
over there cracking yourself up, huh?
I love Mike. Exactly. Yeah, sure.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. So, moving on. We actually, as we said, like, we're about to get a bunch of awesome stuff. We covered the trailer that came out a little while ago for the Amazon Prime's animated take on Robert Kirkman's hit Image comic Invincible.
Yes.
The trailer came out a bit ago, looked super cool, showed us a lot of the action, showed us it was a very adult animated series, but it didn't give us a release date. So we now have an actual release date. It's going to be on Amazon March 26th. They're going to release the first 3 hour-long episodes. So 3 hours of animation, and then it shifts to a weekly format with 1 new episode coming each Friday through April 30th. 8 episodes total. So assuming that each one of them is the same length, this is an 8-hour animated series kind of put into hour-long chunks, which in addition to getting the release date of March 26th, that's awesome. These aren't 22 minutes. These aren't half hours. Like, full hour-long episodes is pretty awesome. Additionally, they released kind of a first look clip. It's an extended sort of 2.5-minute look of Invincible and his father Omni-Man playing catch, as a father and son do, just doing it in a superhero way. And it's Stephen Yeun, who's from Walking Dead, and J.K. Simmons as Omni-Man. So it's an awesome clip. Without getting into any spoilers about Invincible, if you've not read the comic and you're not familiar with it, the relationship between Omni-Man and his son, Invincible, is sort of at the core of all of this. Like, it is a father-son show. It's a show about basically the conceit of the show is what happens if your dad is Superman and you know that as soon as you hit puberty, you're getting all of those powers. And what does it mean to sort of become this hero? So it's an awesome scene. Again, shows off just the absolutely gorgeous animation. Like, if we're getting 8 hours of this quality, like, as an animation nerd, I'm here for it. As an Invincible fan who absolutely loved the comic, I can't wait to see them go down this road and tell this story. And again, starved for content, and we are about to be in the middle of all of it. So what did you guys think of this clip?
Mike, Shannon, not a fan, huh?
Well, again, I don't know the book. So my anticipation is based solely on the enthusiasms that you guys have expressed in the past for this.
If only there was a place you could get it. If only there was
like, just
service.
Watching the scene, it's fine. I feel like in terms of like your everyday TV goer, you have so many superhero options based off of the marketing, what makes this different? Now, I know you guys have said there are big twists and turns in the story that you can't necessarily put in the marketing because it would ruin the story. But right now, I mean, am I going to watch it? 100%. I'll probably really like it. But if I didn't have friends like you guys who had read the comic, there would be nothing about this show that would be driving me to Amazon Prime to watch it.
I think this is
keep it up. Keep it up. You might not have friends like us for long.
oh, Mr. Bringing the world together over here now.
What you're saying is our friendship isn't invincible. Copy that.
Okay. Vogel and the Last Geek Buddy. All right, listen. This is the. I agree with you, but I think this is a fascinating thing you bring up, Shannon, because Mike and I probably, because we've read it, looked at this scene and brought our own stuff to it. Especially that one line where the dad says, "You might have to do things you don't want to do." You know, you're like, "What? Oh, is he gonna?" And then he goes, "And other things that that you will want to do, you'll need to do." Blah blah blah. So he kind of covered it up there in that moment. But I like that this clip let the animation breathe. It didn't fill it with a lot of dialogue. It was just breathing a little bit, and I like that. Them just sitting in the air, throwing catch around the world at each other. It gave it time and this kind of relationship. And it's so, if you think about it, it's kind of like you could see Clark and his dad doing that in the in Kansas in the weave. You see them playing catch, not obviously with his dad having any kind of superpowers, but that idea of father-son playing catch, it's like literally elevated to a whole nother level in this trailer, which I enjoyed. And I liked the animation. I liked the look of it, and I liked the feel of it. And the voiceover work from JK and Stephen Yoon, I thought worked really well as well. So overall, this just gets me more excited. But Shannon, you bring an excellent point. Is it bringing in people who haven't read the comic book? Does it excite them? Does it interest them? So I think that's a valid opinion to have for sure.
Yeah, I think that I do think, and as we've said, there's probably a lot that they just can't show because they are really worried about kind of revealing things, especially if you're telling these stories in hour-long chunks. It makes me think that they're going to get through a lot of this story really quickly. They're not going to necessarily take their time. But also, like, to me, I love a scene like this, kind of to Johnny's point, where in the world of trying to wow everybody and show what you can do, like a nice animated scene that actually takes time to have like some nice character beats is awesome. So the fact that, although I don't disagree with Shannon, the fact that this is the clip that they release might not be the thing to excite new fans. As someone who is familiar with the story and is a big animation fan, it does give me confidence that they actually are going to be telling this story in the right way. So that makes me excited. And I do imagine that this is a comic book property that is big enough with a strong enough fan base that when the episodes do come out, I'm pretty sure fans are going to do the marketing's job for them as far as tweeting about it and getting the word out and kind of telling their friends to check it out. So it will be interesting to see how it performs for Amazon Prime, but I have a feeling it's going to do pretty well.
That one's coming up in March, right? Is that correct? Yeah. So we got that coming around the corner as well, for sure. And full disclosure, Robert Kirkman owns Skybound Entertainment, which also owns the Schmodown now, SEN, which is where I host shows. So I don't have to shill for this because I'm an independent contractor, but I think it looks fantastic. So, all right. What's our last? Oh, is it me for the last one?
Oh, it's you.
Let's jump into it. All right, real quick, because I know we're way over the time we usually spend on these geek news items, but HBO Max just released their numbers for Warner Brothers released their numbers for HBO Max and HBO subscriptions. Some really big numbers. I'm going to bring them up here real quick. Some really big numbers were announced by them for their successful at this point HBO Max endeavor. HBO Max has reached 37.7 million subscribers, which includes 17.2 million activated subscribers. So they're also bunching in people who already had HBO and it just converted to HBO Max. But the activated subscribers is what they kind of pinpoint as people who downloaded the app and signed up and are using it consistently throughout. It's and also the release of Wonder Woman 1984 helped to drive the domestic HBO Max and HBO subscribers to more than 41 million. This is according to AT&T CEO John Stankey. He said it's 2 years faster than their initial forecast. Their initial forecast was trying to get to 35, 37 million subscribers in a couple of years. The fact that they've already blown past this is really interesting. However, their profits are down because, of course, COVID and what have you. So this is kind of a mixed bag of results. Yes, the streaming service has increased its subscriber base. Yes, the idea possibly of these films being released day and date all year this year on HBO Max from Warner Brothers and other companies affiliated with Warner Brothers, like we saw the new video that dropped with Dune included, like all of that. That is maybe a reason for all of this. But what do you take from this, Mike and Shannon? Do you think this is the right move now? Do they feel validated, even though they kind of fumbled the ball with that rollout of this announcement? Or do you think this is just this seems to make sense because everyone's home now?
Well, I think there was probably there was brand confusion when this came out of well, what is HBO Max? I already have HBO. Do I need this too? Oh, I get this automatically. Yeah. HBO Max has been my go-to streamer for most of the pandemic. I mean, aside from all of the HBO stuff, like you get their entire library. You're getting a bunch of stuff from Warner Brothers, a bunch of stuff from DC, a bunch of stuff from TBS. I mean, right now I'm on a rotation of watching Warrior, which was a Cinemax series that Mr. Vogel suggested, and it is dynamite. Stargirl, which was made for DC Universe, but then went to CW, and Wrecked, which was a TBS sitcom that is literally one of the funniest things I've ever seen on television. It's not a surprise that Wonder Woman 84 was sort of the thing that got more people to jump on, at least for a month, because, again, Star for Entertainment, you want to see the Wonder Woman sequel. Hopefully this continues. Again, It surprised me that they didn't have their version of The Mandalorian to start off with, to say you are only going to get this on HBO Max. Like they kind of had that with The Flight Attendant, which came months after they premiered, and The Flight Attendant, great show, not for the whole family. Very much a grown-up show. So it'll be interesting to see with their day and date with Warner Brothers, if their subscriber numbers are going to keep growing.
Yeah. Mike, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, they will. I mean, it's smart. They fumbled the whole thing. Like the way that they unveiled this as sort of a, hey, we're just doing this with all of our movies, clearly not consulting with our creative talent because our creative talent was all super pissed off about it. They fumbled it. But it doesn't mean it's not going to work for them. I don't know that HBO Max is my go-to streamer, but I do use it a lot. There's just a lot there, and I think that they have more marquee things than Netflix does. But ultimately, any of these streamers, Netflix, HBO Max, Peacock, Disney Plus, all of them, they're going to work the same way HBO did. Like, you subscribe to HBO for the 10 weeks that Game of Thrones is on because you want to watch Game of Thrones, and there's a reason that before every episode of Game of Thrones, they do all their HBO commercials for everything they have coming up after Game of Thrones stops. Like, they want you to be like, oh, I'm going to keep that subscription a few more weeks and check out Insecure, or I'm going to check out, that's what they do. And so same concept here that, yes, they're going to see a bump. Like they saw a bump with Wonder Woman 84 and with Dune or Kong versus Godzilla or In the Heights or any of these movies, they'll see a bump or they'll see people come on and stay on. And then let's just assume that once things get completely back to normal and we're out of this pandemic, they kind of pull back on this and say, okay, we're doing our big budget things in the big screen. You're going to hope by then, I know we're about to talk about it, that people are going to stay because of the HBO series or this new marquee thing. So I think that this is, at most, this is a giant shift in the way that Warner Brothers is going to do feature films moving forward forever. And at least this is a way to boost their numbers in the first year to try and get them closer to Disney Plus, closer to Netflix. And then by the time it's done, they're going to have more of their original content ready to go. To your point, Shannon, to have their Mandalorian, to have their WandaVision, the James Gunn Suicide Squad show, things like that. They're going to keep people going. So I think it's good. I kind of also think that like all of these studios and companies, like their projected numbers are always safe.
Yes.
They project safely so that they can then say that they exceeded their numbers because that's the news story. Like, if they had projected super high and it hadn't come in there wouldn't have been a lot of articles and we wouldn't have talked about it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a fair point, Mike, you're making. Look, you've been executive at a studio. I'm sure you would know how they do certain things.
Yeah.
So there you go.
You always you're like, hey, how many subscribers do you think we're going to have? I think we're going to have like 20 million. Let's tell them that we're expecting 12. Oh my God, we exceeded it. It's 20 million.
Good idea. And let's make sure we lump in with the numbers of people who've already subscribed by pay channel and what have you. But Bernstein analyst Peter Supino said in his earnings preview of HBO Max, investors reacted well to the announcement that the company would be releasing its 2021 movie slate direct to consumers via their HBO Max platform. This should drive incremental subs to the platform, but we are still concerned about HBO Max's scale relative to other streaming leaders. Now, at this point, they've announced that they adjusted their projections to want to hit 50 to 55 million subscribers by 2025. And they're going to, Warner Media is launching an advertising supported version of HBO Max in the second quarter of the year to begin rolling the service out internationally as well. So that's another way to line this thing up. So I think once this all gets settled, we will go back to the theater. But I wonder how many of these streaming services that have been set up and have put and companies have put so much capital behind are going to, be okay with losing subscribers. I don't know that they will be. So I
don't know that. I mean, look, I know that we are unique and we are not necessarily your typical moviegoer entertainment person.
Yeah.
But we've talked about this and I've been thinking about it, and I realize what I'm actually going to do. Like when these big movies come out, if they stay on the streamer, like we're all going to go to the movies.
Sure.
Like if take Godzilla versus Kong. If the option of going to see it on a big screen with your friends on a Friday night was here, I would, say, Johnny, drive up. Shannon, let's get the gang together. Let's all go to Wood Ranch, get some food. Let's go see it. But then the bonus for me is, as a subscriber, I don't have to come home and be like, oh, I really want to go see it again. I guess I have to go back to the theater this weekend.
Right.
I can go see it with all my friends in the theater, have the popcorn, have the night out, have my social gathering, and then the next morning I can wake up, make some coffee, and just watch the fucking thing again at 10 a.m. because I have HBO Max. And I actually think, again, knowing that we're not necessarily typical, maybe that's not what everyone is going to do, but I actually think more people than you assume will do that because we do like going out and doing something with our friends. And I think that is going to be a piece of the puzzle that people aren't considering.
Agreed. I definitely feel like the streaming for us, the streaming market is taking the place of home video. Is taking the place of Blu-ray and 4K. I mean, the theatrical experience, especially for a movie like Godzilla versus Kong, like we might enjoy it. We're gonna enjoy having something new to watch. It's not going to be the same as watching these two titans slug it out on the big screen.
Yeah.
Will that matter to most moviegoers? I don't know. I know for a certain segment of the population, it will matter. So when it is safe to go back to the theaters, people are going to do that. But like Mike said, the idea that you can watch it on Friday night with your friends out in public and then be like, God, I really want to watch that movie again. You can pull it up Saturday morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, studios have already been focusing over the last few years on opening night, on getting as many people as possible to be in the theater for this event. Opening night, breaking records on opening, 225 million opening weekend. They've been focusing that way anyway. So this, to me, just keeps going further down that path because, yes, you'll get to have the opening weekend and then people will get to what you'll lose is the repeat business that keeps those records coming. Yeah.
But you are right. I think that we're already so trained. Like, it's great when a movie has like a long tail over the summer and ends up going on to make however many $1 billion like a Marvel movie does. But we're so trained that like the big news is usually the opening weekend box office. It's it broke 200 million, it broke 215, it broke 250. And I do think that ultimately what's going to happen is that the movies are still going to have their giant opening weekend box office. Yeah. And then I think after that, if they do go straight to streaming, or if the window is closed, or if it was a day and date release, you're not going to see the movie go on to make, however many hundreds of millions of dollars because people can go watch it at home. But for the company, the box office may go down, but the subscribers go up. And ultimately, however that math works, I think it ultimately balances out to be great for the studio. This is something that's probably great for the consumer. And as a moviegoer, as long as I can still go to the movies and have my night out, I'm good.
Yeah. I hope there's someone working on a book about all of this, because I would love to see them be able to break it down studio per studio, how they were able to make these decisions and then what the profits were from this situation, so we shall see. All right, that's our Geek News items for this episode. We're going to take a quick break and then get into some Harry Potter news in our main topic here right after this.
Do, 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 boo, boo.
Okay, there it is. Jesus, I'm trying new things and I don't have it all squared away, so I apologize if anyone's confused by that. I'll be editing that out. All right, let's get into our main topic here. I'll just tee it off with Mikey, please. I want to hear your thoughts on this first. This is coming to us from the Hollywood Reporter, specifically Leslie Goldberg. She's reporting that sources were telling THR that executives, Warner Brothers executives, have had a series of meetings with writers with the goal of bringing a Harry Potter TV series or multiple Harry Potter TV series to the HBO Max streaming situation. This has been happening apparently for a little bit. The sources say that these are broad ideas at this point that have been discussed as part of an early stage exploratory meetings. We had a friend of ours text us that he'd heard about this already in the wind. So this is something that's been happening for a little bit. So now I want to get your thoughts on this, Mike. First, I mean, I worked at the Harry Potter Land, but I know you're the full Harry Potter head amongst the three of us. So does this excite you? Do you like the idea of a TV series? Do you think this is even going to happen? And then we'll get into a little bit later in this discussion what we would like to see happen if they did a TV series. So please, Mike.
All right. Well, let's navigate this. Okay. So first of all, I know that HBO Max and Warner Brothers kind of came out with some kind of PR statement that said that this wasn't happening or there wasn't currently anything happening, but they're clearly talking about it. I've heard from multiple people that they're talking about it. Oh, my friend is pitching on this. Oh, I know this. Like I have heard from enough people right now that this is happening that it's happening. They're thinking about this. So the reaction has been interesting because overall, there's clearly a lot of love and excitement for this universe. And I think that the idea of telling stories within the Harry Potter universe and expanding on it is something that anyone who grew up loving this series and living Harry Potter the way that we all did is excited about. They still have the J.K. Rowling issue, which is that there is a significant number of hardcore Potter fans who have been put off by some of her opinions about the trans community. And there is a desire not to put more galleons in her pocket, and a desire to say anything that you do, whether you buy the PS5 game that's coming out next year, whether you support the series, whether you buy more Harry Potter books, ultimately J.K. Rowling gets that money. And there are people that feel that they don't want to support that, which is totally fine. I feel like this is a opportunity, putting aside if you don't want to support anything Harry Potter because you don't want to give J.K. Rowling money, which I completely respect and as is anybody's right, putting that issue aside, I am curious to see where they go with this because I feel like the wider that you expand the wizarding world and the universe of Harry Potter, the more characters that you include, and the more creators that you bring on to tell stories in this universe, the more of an opportunity you have to make this universe reflect the diversity and representation that we feel is sometimes lacking in its author. So I think that there's a lot of potential here. For Warner Brothers and for HBO Max, this is a win. We were literally just talking about how HBO Max doesn't have its Mandalorian, its WandaVision, its all ages giant franchise show. A Harry Potter show ticks every single box that they could want. And if they do decide to not have their movies release day and date on HBO Max anymore, it is the exact kind of content that would keep subscribers 1,000% if they get it right. Yeah. And I think you can't deny that as HBO Max is figuring out what their strategy is, when you look back to that Disney Investors Day meeting where they announced 9 Marvel shows, some animated, some live action, 9 Star Wars shows, some animated, some live action, and you see how Disney is taking both the Marvel universe and the Star Wars universe and creating not just one piece of content, but like miles of content that can go on for years with new characters and new worlds and new ideas. Warner Brothers has Harry Potter as their crown jewel, and it is the one brand that they have that could do exactly what they're doing if they handle it right. So that's a lot of ifs. They could totally mess it up. The J.K. Rowling factor is definitely a huge albatross around their neck that I'm sure they're trying to figure out how to get away from as best they can. But it's a giant opportunity. We'll get into what I think they should do in a minute, but what do you guys think?
You know, it's one of those things that it's shocking that they haven't done yet, that they haven't been able to announce something yet. I mean, there was a story last week in Variety that actually one of our audience members tweeted at us about a Warner Brothers executive named Tom Asheim. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he had been promoted to head the studio's Harry Potter franchise and the Wizarding World properties. So basically, he's going to be the head of the studio representative. Ultimately, does that position mean anything? Because J.K. Rowling has the final say. We don't know. But I do think it was symbolic that they are trying to put more names in the hat in terms of what the audience can expect. So like, okay, she is not the only one. You know, we have other people involved. And also bringing new writers in is a good idea. Yeah. I mean, you know, the original creator, yes, they're the one that was responsible for birthing this universe, but getting different points of view, people that grew up on that material, provides us with some really great entertainment. So yeah, fingers crossed that this will actually see the light of day.
And as far as the executive thing with Thomas Scheim, like I do think that when you promote someone to that level and you have an internal executive that is focused on one brand, it does mean that you are actually going to focus on that brand. And it also puts someone in place that is there to ultimately be the studio executive that is meeting with writers, creators, directors. I'm not going to say he's the Kathleen Kennedy per se, but like J.K. Rowling is not the one that's going to meet with directors, creators, and whatever to do just other pieces of this. So it definitely does point to Warner Brothers trying to get at least a sliver. Ultimately, I think she still has creative control. She still has final say. But I think you're seeing Warner Brothers try to get that sliver of creative control back to say, you still have final say, but we're going to start shaping the direction of where we're going here.
Yeah, and the J.K. Rowling thing is an important thing to think about too. And it's look, I don't like Mike just said a few minutes ago, like we're not the typical consumers, right? That go in. So I don't know how much the trans stuff would stop a lot of people necessarily from going. I don't know if those comments would. Surely there's a section of people who don't want to support it. But those are the same people who are watching Mandalorian. Those are the same who have issues with Cara Dune and Gina Carano, things you're saying, but they're still going to watch the episode. So it wasn't really affected by that. So maybe the studio sees as that's just a storm we have to go past. Look what happened with Ezra Miller with Flash. No one's addressing that video at all, and they're just powering forward with that movie. The same thing with Ray Fisher. There's like, Ray Fisher's we did our investigation, we're going to move forward. So it seems like Warner Brothers is just almost a little bit like the mouse is like, we're just going to go out with their money. There's money here for us to get. Let's go get it. So that's how they look. So to me, I think this is a brilliant business decision. Absolutely. And as you said earlier, they don't have a Mandalorian. You're right, Michael. This would be their Mandalorian if they get it right. And it could be multiple series like we're seeing with the Mandalorian, Ahsoka, Andor, these spin-offs that are coming off of movies or off of the Mandalorian with Book of Boba Fett. This is all smart business decisions by Warner Brothers. And I want to throw something in because you talk about J.K. Rowling. Rowling controls the franchise. This is according to Hollywood Reporter. I'm going to talk about rights here. Rowling controls the franchise and has a say in everything involved in the property. NBC Universal in 2016 inked a 7-year rights deal with Warner Brothers domestic TV distribution that included U.S. broadcast cable streaming rights to the Wizarding World. That deal ends in April of 2025. 5. It included digital initiatives as well as theme park content and events. The pact also meant Warner execs had to make a side deal that allowed all of the Harry Potter features to be on HBO Max streaming briefly. And when the service launched last May, now those films are going to be going on to Peacock, the new NBC Universal streaming service, which I'm on Peacock at a date later this year. So there's a lot of moving pieces to this, but it all ends with JK having worked at the park. I know JK was very much involved in the construction of the park at Universal Studios, both in Florida and here in California. So yes, everything starts with, and you wonder, Michael, if they've moved this person into this position. So maybe this is almost like a George Lucas situation where they try to encourage her to maybe have less to do with it. And if there's a moment, you don't necessarily buy out J.K. Rowling, but maybe there's a moment to be like, why don't you just sit back, do your thing, collect the money. We'll handle making all the money and doing all these things. And, let us have it for a little bit. And maybe cooler heads prevail. And she does step back a little bit so people don't connect her with it as well, because it'll open the door to representation. And nothing would say that more than to have a trans character in the first series they release. So,
yeah. Look, I'm sure that Warner Brothers would love nothing more than for J.K. Rowling to take a bit more of a back seat, just with the performance of the Fantastic Beasts and this whole trans issue. So again, I do think that if you don't want to support it because you don't want to support J.K. Rowling, totally get that.
Absolutely.
But beyond that, I think that the Wizarding world itself has a lot of good going for it. The Harry Potter, like her or hate her, and acknowledging the fact that she definitely had some missteps in her storytelling as far as representation, cultural things. Harry Potter still is one of the biggest pieces of literature and entertainment that has happened in our lifetime. It's not something like all of our comic book franchises that we've loved because we've read them for years. It's not even like Star Wars, which has been around since 1977. Like in this immediate lifetime, in the past 20 odd years, or more, a little more than that, this thing came like out of nowhere. It blew up, and it is now on the level. Like, people look at this world and get invested in this world in the way that they get invested in superheroes, in Star Wars, and other things. So there's definitely things that are not cool. LGBTQ representation, non-existent until she said Dumbledore was gay after the fact. Right. The names like Cho Chang, the way she handled sort of Native American issues with the American wizarding schools, obviously the trans stuff. So there's a ton of issues. But that being said, there's a lot of really good characters, a lot of good storytelling, a lot of good world building. And I think that using this as an opportunity to expand that world, like you were saying, to make it more inclusive, to have more colors of character, to have more characters of color, to have more LGBTQ characters, including trans characters, to kind of show the breadth and width, to use these fantastical characters like house elves, like centaurs, like the things that she sort of set up in the books, as far as like Hermione feeling like elves were treated poorly and then never stuck that landing. Like, so if we move into expanding this world, which gets into your point, Johnny, your question of like what we would like to see. I don't necessarily need to see more stories about Harry and Ron and Hermione as adults. I don't need to see stories about Harry as an Auror for the Ministry of Magic. I don't need to see stories about their children. I think what Star Wars has shown us really well is that you can tell me stories about wizarding kids or muggles or anything that I've never met before. And the world is strong enough, the world of the wizarding world, the world of Hogwarts, the world of all of this is strong enough that I'm going to be on board. Tell me do an entire series about elves, the house elves, and give me a brand new character to be on board with. Like, they have an entire world at their disposal, and I think the further they get away from the core characters that we've been living with, and the more they start to tell more interesting and diverse stories within the wizarding world, the more success they're actually going to have, and the more opportunity they have to get further and further away from what J.K. Rowling has done or said that has been problematic.
Yeah, Shannon, it's almost like people have been clamoring, let's move away from the Skywalkers in the Star Wars series. The same thing here. People want to, but you do feel that people want to expand the world out and move away from Harry Potter and everybody involved with it. Nothing's anything wrong with that, but they just want to move away from it.
Yeah, I mean, look, the wizarding world is a very rich world. I mean, you don't have to focus on your core characters to come up with good stories. I mean, Fantastic Beasts for all of its pluses and minuses, Newt Scamander for me is just not that interesting of a protagonist.
Yeah.
Had he been written differently, had he been portrayed differently, if it had worked, we'd all say Newt Scamander is the best thing, the best thing ever. I also think, while I do agree that there are corners of that world that have been unexplored, that you can, create some amazing stories. We're going to see the rise of Voldemort in a series or a film at some point. Like you don't leave that story on the table and not tell it. I mean, that's literally what the prequels were for Star Wars. Like, how did Darth Vader become Darth Vader? And like we've seen the the flashbacks in the movies, but to really give it sort of the proper treatment, they're going to do that as a series or a film at some point.
Yeah, Mike. I wonder if the move is to go and do like the Marauders at Hogwarts and the Rise of Voldemort, and yes, it predominantly white characters, but maybe because it's kind of set in the pseudo 70s in that world. We saw in the 70s in our world way more sitcoms, way more shows that focused on people of color, and then got kind of disappeared for the most part in the 80s and 90s. And then boom, we're seeing it now, explosion finally after the BLM protests and the last few years, of course, more of that representation happening as well in the B2 situation. So is this where they could go back in the 70s and then show more? Ironically, show more acceptance, more people of color, more situations, while they're also setting up this massive wizarding war against Voldemort.
Well, look, I think that the wizarding world does not necessarily have to carry with it the same issues of segregation that we have in our world. So I think they can go back to any level and fill it out with more characters and just create more diversity within the wizarding world, which they should 1000% do, whether it's prequels or sequels or wherever they place it. But I do think, yes, like, look, there are characters within the world that we would love to see in a prequel series or a sequel series, but kind of to your point, even if you go back in time and you're like, let's talk about Harry's parents and show them growing up in the Marauders map, you're telling a story where your lead characters are going to be Voldemort,
Harry's dad.
Harry's dad's name? What's Harry's dad is?
James.
Yeah. So you're going to see it's going to be Voldemort, James, Lily, Severus, Lupin, Peter Pettigrew, they're all white. So I think that like getting away from that a little bit just will allow for more diversity and different perspectives. And like I would love to see, not that I think you should ignore race, but like there's a black creator out there that grew up loving Harry Potter, that did not necessarily see themselves represented in any major characters, that would love to come in and write their story about a black kid at Hogwarts and what they did. And I think that's great. I think a coming out story at Hogwarts. I think a trans story at Hogwarts. The rubber's going to meet the road when a creator comes in and says, look, given everything that's gone down, I think we need to have a trans character. And it goes up the ladder and J.K. Rowling says, absolutely not. That's where... For Warner Brothers, the rubber's really going to meet the road. Like, if they can really expand on this universe, they can win and they can make Harry Potter their Star Wars, their MCU. And I know that that's their goal. That's 1000% has to be their goal. There's no way it's not. And I do believe that right now what they're doing, I don't think they know what they want to do. I think they have a bunch of writing teams and writers and creators and directors coming in, and they're doing exactly what the three of us are doing right now. They're coming in and saying, this is what I would do in this universe, and they're waiting until they find something that they're like, that's the thing that's going to get us to move past all of this and put Harry Potter where it needs to be. And hopefully they take a risk. Hopefully they do something a little bit different.
And the thing is, you don't have to be, you could do it at Bobaton Academy. You could do a whole Bobaton series. Just right. Like I just saw, you could just do a whole series about the ladies at Bobaton. You could just do a whole series about Victor Crumb and his crew. You could just do a whole series as separate kind of things as well.
Well, beyond that, you could do a story about, look, we all love Hogwarts and we know everything about Hogwarts and we've lived in Hogwarts, but is Hogwarts where only the more privileged people go? Like, what if you're a wizard and you don't get to go to Hogwarts?
Yeah, what's
like,
the public
your
school
life
of Hogwarts? Yeah.
Yeah, sort of. So, I mean, I think that there's a lot of interesting things. Like, I think that when Harry Potter is at its best and has been at its best in the past, putting aside where it's at its worst, which we have all discussed at length, when it is at its best, whether that is through Dolores Umbridge and the way that she treats everybody at the school, it takes aspects of our life, whether that is politicians, the right wing, different things, and kind of gives the wizarding spin on it and makes us go, oh, that relates to the world that I'm in. Yeah. And I think that if they can navigate some of the issues that Harry Potter as a franchise is currently dealing with and face those issues head on and say, we're going to take the wizarding world and reflect that back to you and make our statement on how we actually feel about this, they could win back a lot of people, even if stuff still goes into J.K. Rowling's pocket, even if she still ultimately gets dividends from this. If they're telling stories that really push the world that we want to see, and it's reflected back to us in the way that they show us the wizarding world, they could win.
Yeah, absolutely. Any final words on this, Shan?
No, man. I mean, Harry Potter was such a blast to read. Going to the park is so amazing, and I hear the experience that they have in London is fantastic as well. Like, hopefully, we get the next generation of of Wizarding World stories being told, and hopefully they're on HBO Max.
Yeah,
yep.
I would totally wear a robe to the London experience.
I would do that too. Yeah. All I have to say is Accio TV show.
Well, let's see if this one gets Wingardium Leviosa off the ground. We shall see. We shall see. We shall see.
Oh, man. You worked there and came up?
Yeah. It's been a few years. The spells don't come as trippingly off the tongue anymore.
We're going to be talking about that in your next review, Mr. Rocha.
Leviosa. Accio, kiss my. Anyway, all right. So that's the end of this episode of the Geek Buddies. Thank you all so much for joining us here for this fun conversation about everything that's going on in the world of entertainment. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's @geek_buddies. On Instagram, @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's @Shannon_McClung. On Instagram, @Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is @MKToon. If you'd like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is @The Rocha Says.
Mikey?
Look, if you're a Gryffindor like me, a Ravenclaw like Johnny, a Hufflepuff like Shannon, or if you're cooler like all of us, and you're a Slytherin, we definitely want you involved. We want all houses are welcome here at the Geek Buddies. And here's what we need you to do to bring even more students to our School of Geekery. We need you to hit the like button below, subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw page, leave some comments below. We love to get back to you. We love to hear what you guys thought of the episode. We love to engage with you guys, debate things. What do you guys want to see out of a Harry Potter series? If you are not a J.K. Rowling fan right now, what would get you to watch it? If you are a J.K. Rowling fan, how would you want to handle this? Like, let us know below. We want to hear from all opinions, all sides of this debate. And beyond that, if you are listening to us on Anchor or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, definitely rate us, definitely leave some comments. It helps us go up in the rankings. And the most important thing that you can do is share this video. A lot of you guys have been awesome about this, so keep retweeting. We see it. Keep telling people that this is the place to get all your geek news. Share it with your friends. Let's keep the conversation going. And hopefully we will be here with you through Marvel shows, Star Wars shows, and eventually even Harry Potter shows.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be great as well. And don't forget, we've been doing these WandaVision recaps and reviews and analysis and Easter eggs on the Geek Buddies every Saturday now. We just did episode 3. If you haven't watched that one yet, feel free to do so. We did episode 1 and 2. Some of you may be late to the party on WandaVision. You're just watching these episodes now. Watch our reviews. We go bone deep on our reviews in analyzing everything and all the Easter eggs and everything's happening. So if you've missed out on those, they are up on the channel for you to watch, or if you want to listen to it on our Geek Buddies podcast stream as well. Yeah.
And to all of you guys who have been saying in the comments and on Twitter and everywhere that our WandaVision reviews are your favorite reviews and the most in-depth, we appreciate it. And we promise to keep being super, super nerdy and going super, super deep. I think we're going to have a lot to talk about this weekend after episode 4, so definitely check it out.
Yep. And shout out to Emma Fife, who's been incredible to be our guest for those reviews as well. All right, that's it from us. Thank you all so much. Please take care of yourselves. Practice the social distancing. Wear the mask. And come back and join us next week for another brand new episode of The
Geek
Buddies!
Hey!